Noon, everybody. This is Roger Marshall. We're in our office here in D.C. and 312 Cannon, and certainly always try to start these off by doing a lot of listening. So I guess I'll just turn it over to you all. And I do have part of my staff here in the office. I don't take the time to introduce them all. I'm sure there's a big crowd there.
Yeah.
So I'm all ears.
Hi, Congressman. This is Nikki. I have scanned a list of speakers to Katie Moore's email. I think Dave Norland's going to start it off, and then we'll just go in order of the list.
Sounds great.
And Congressman, thank you very much for that. It's very considerate. That's what we thought was about 10 minutes just for you to hear from us, and then 5 minutes for whatever you'd like to say. And we hope we can extend past that. We know you have floor business. So,
You bet.
First thing, in an official email recently, you wrote, and I think I agree with this, at the end of the day, we're a country of laws. And I'm asking if you'll hold yourself and the president to those. The thing is that this law upholding really illegally institutes other laws. This turns out to be a shell game. They say they're no longer going to separate families, but there are many questions about how those are handled. But one clear issue is at the port of entry, the president's declaration says the only legal way to enter is at a designated port of entry at an appropriate time, but they are turning people back at the ports of entry and preventing them from seeking asylum. Then also they talk about improper entry being a crime under federal law. Well, it's really a misdemeanor, fine of $250, sentence of up to 6 months. The administration is making it a criminal thing and jailing people. And then that also international law says as long as refugees present themselves without delay to the authorities and show good cause for their illegal entry or presence, countries are, I emphasize, not permitted to impose penalties on individuals for illegal entry or presence. This is international law, and it has been codified into U.S. law, which makes the president, the administration, and those Congress people who support him, their accomplices in international law. So that question, you can come back to an answer for that later on, but essentially, yes, let's do that. Let's uphold the law. Thank you.
You bet.
Hello, Barbara Marshall Nickel. I'm a 30-year part of Salina, Kansas, a professor for 30 years here in Salina. And as a grandmother with 2-year-old twins, grandbaby twins, I'm very concerned about how we're going to put the babies and the children back with their families, those that we've carted off to places, different places, very concerned about putting the families back together.
Okay.
Hello, Congressman. This is Annette Carr. I'm from McPherson. The situation with these children is a very personal issue to me. Years ago, back in 1959, medical practices were very different. I came out of a coma, and I was in a metal crib, basically a cage, much like the children, and my parents were only allowed a short period of time to visit me, and the nurses were told, do not respond to this child if she wakes up. I did not, just like the children in those camps, I didn't know where I was, why I was there. And that isolation, that fear is just horrendous. I am saying find those children, get the money and find those children, connect them with their families. Because trust me, the attitude of, oh, they're just kids, wah, is not an acceptable attitude at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Lene Meyer, and I am a retired nurse of 51 years, so I understand somewhat of the Hippocratic Oath. And you being a physician, I would hope you would include the fact that these children, and parents too, are suffering psychologically and emotionally. And I think it's your responsibility to tap into the fact that you are a physician as well, and do not harm these people, these children, these parents, because it fits into what the oath that I'm assuming you did long ago. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, my name's Gerald Gillespie. I am from Salina here, newly retired. I would just like to say, first off, unlike what I've heard in interviews, it seems to me that President Trump really does not have the kind of care for the children and families that one might hope, especially when he implements a policy of separating those parents and children, and then apparently lies about the source of that and blames other for the sacrificial consequences that it looks like will go on for weeks for those, if not longer, for those children and parents. So I guess my question is, and my larger concern is, where is the soul of the Republican Party? Where is its heart now? Because I don't see enough people not blindly following the president and not being the first to criticize policies like that separation, and really not speaking out against the unethical and corrupt behaviors that we see in so many administrative members one after another, and to speak directly against what seemed to be lie after lie from our president, and what I would hope is a reinstallation of respect for facts and evidence and critical inquiry. So my larger question here is, we need actually a genuine Republican Party, I think, and I'm just wondering where you see the heart and soul of that party now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Rosa de la Cruz, and I am new to Salina, but I am also a mother of a 7-year-old, which is half, let's say, Latin American. And I am really concerned of this situation with our families being separated. And honestly, when my kid come to me and say, "Well, Mom, what about it that happened to us?" I am really concerned, and honestly, I didn't find any answer from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Preeti Gulati Cox. First of all, I would like to say I heard you on Chris Hayes yesterday, and it was completely shocking to hear some of the stuff that you were saying. And so you say you're going to go to the border on the weekend, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when you go there, I want you to come back to your constituents in Salina, in Kansas, and say how many of the Guatemalan and Honduran and other Central American mothers and babies that you spoke to, how many of them were actually trafficking drugs for cartels, for drug cartels, okay? Would you do that?
Well, I'm going to appear on Chris Hayes again, and that'll probably be my best chance to catch most of your audience.
No, tell us, when you come back, tell us, I'd like to know how many of those mothers were trafficking drugs for the cartels.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Stan Cox. I live in Salina. And when you go down there this weekend, don't let them give you the runaround and show you some Potemkin shelter, but insist on talking to as many of those parents whose children have been taken as you can. And try to, I think you'll learn a lot if you ask them to tell you their stories about why they came. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Congressman, I think we're going to hold off. We'd like to hear from you and maybe have some back and forth.
Yeah, I probably got 10 more minutes because votes have not been called yet. So I'm happy if there's 3 or 4 or 5 more of you. I'm happy to give you a little bit more time.
I think there's plenty of material there to respond to.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for everybody's heart and your concern. And I can certainly tell the genuineness of your heart, and you're coming from a great place. I think that each one of you and I, and the president for that matter, have the same goals, the same objectives, the same dreams, that we want a secure country, but we also want to be a country of compassion, that it doesn't have to be either or, that we can have both security as well as compassion. And I've said from day one that the situation of separating children from their parents is terrible. I've said it on national TV. I've said it on maybe 5 interviews yesterday on the radio. Every time I'm asked about it, I describe separating children from parents as terrible. I think I'm trying to figure out exactly what the situation is down there, and that's why I'm going to go myself and try to sort it out. But we certainly have made efforts. We had a phone call with DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, asking them some of these same questions as you all are.
Congressman, you were quoting the DHS as telling you that these were fake families coming across. You appeared to be listening to them. And we've got 2,600 kids separated from their parents. I think it takes more proactivity than you're demonstrating so far.
Okay, and certainly we had a pretty aggressive conversation with DHS, and that's why I decided to still go down myself. But what DHS is telling me, let me back up. We went from 15,000 illegal border crossings a month to 50,000 a month. The number of family units has quadrupled. So there's a huge stress on the border. I think you all have to acknowledge that. And I certainly took an oath also for national security, and I think our borders are very important, and we need national security, not just for immigration, but for reasons of drugs coming across the border as well as terrorists. So what DHS is telling me that is a very large number of these children that are in captivity are not children of parents, that they were imposters.
Do you
So we
just
have-
realize you used the word captivity and children in the same sentence?
You got a lot of disbelieving people, Congressman, on that one.
Yeah.
We are not buying that.
Captivity.
You know, I tried to really listen intensely to each one of you, and please, if y'all want to talk some more, please go ahead and I'll do some more listening.
But what do you mean you just want to keep listening, but you don't have anything concrete to say? You keep repeating the same things over and over again. On any show we listen to you, you say the same few things. You know, come on, say something.
Well, and do something.
Something different.
Congressman, we'd like to see some independence, and I hope I speak to you as a fellow human being. I've said to you on more than one occasion, I feel for you in that situation. It's a big responsibility, and especially under this administration. It's an unchallenged, we're uncharted waters. And so far, you're being swept away by those uncharted waters. We expect independence in our congressman, and you're not demonstrating it yet.
Okay, is it my turn to talk again?
It is.
It's hard to read your body language. Yeah, no, I think we're doing lots of things. I think I've been working on this immigration since before I got elected, trying to understand all the complexities of it. And that's why I'm so proud that this afternoon I get to vote on a bill that I think will totally solve this problem and take the power out of one legislative branch or one of the executive branch from going back and forth. So our legislation today is going to solve this. Our legislation today is going to solve this problem.
It will not, Congressman. It will not solve the problem. You need to do more investigation.
Okay. Why do you say this legislation will not solve the problem?
There is no support for the Dreamers, for DACA. Doesn't give any concrete, specific support for the people we're talking about on any number of levels.
Right, and is there anything in the legislation that addresses the children that have already been separated? Are they going to reunite them with their families?
Yes.
Is there anything in there about that?
Key question.
Yeah, say your question one more time. I only heard part of it. You guys are kind of talking on top of each other.
Yeah, I said that is there anything in the legislation that addresses the children that have been separated already being reunited with their families?
You know, absolutely. I think there's like words in there that'll help solve this problem, and my staff is going to help me out with just some of the specifics of it. Most importantly, going forward, it's going to solve the problem as well. So basically, we will, when a family unit comes across the border, that they'll stay in the custody of DHS as opposed to being split up and part of them going to the judicial system and part of them staying here.
So they put them all in the same jail cell now, and there's a law that prevents minors from being incarcerated. Then what's going to happen? What's going to happen when that law goes into effect?
We're going to put them in residential centers. So when they break the law, what would you have us to do with people that break our laws? What would you suggest we do with them?
I object to your break the law language. They're just crossing the border. They're not breaking the law, which is my point earlier.
They're coming in legally. They're seeking asylum in this great country of the United States.
Yeah, and that's where we'll just have to respectfully disagree. I think if you come in across our border illegally, that's breaking the law of the land. And this is a law of land, and we have to keep those laws. And I've taken an oath to protect our Constitution. So I'm afraid we just have to agree to disagree on that point.
But putting the previous system, putting an ankle bracelet on parents and then having them check in until their asylum hearing, that was working apparently extremely well. People were not fleeing because they wanted to get to the asylum hearings.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
And that would be far more humane and cheaper than what we're doing now.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I could only wish that was the case. Unfortunately, only 3% of people that were going through the asylum process came back for their hearing. Only 3%. So 97% of them, to quote President Obama, disappeared into the fields and mountains or something like that. So I'm afraid that's not true.
I have to look that up.
Okay, I understand.
This is Gordon Fiedler. Wasn't on the original list, but if you indeed are going to the border, I would suggest that instead of flying, you take the bus. Two things will happen. You'll eventually get to the border, and you can listen and see firsthand what's going on. The second thing that'll happen is you'll get to rub shoulders with some of the people whose lives are lived very close to the bone, much like your own constituents in this district. You'll find out firsthand from them what it's like to be trampled by the thug that's in the White House.
Respond.
There's nothing to respond to that. I need to close things up and get to our votes. I think we've come a long, long way with immigration. When I came here a year and a half ago, no one would talk to me about it, but we quietly worked on a lot of problems with immigration. We have 6,000 DACA recipients in the state of Kansas. We have maybe over 70,000 people that would be impacted by an agriculture guest worker visa. And we've invested a lot of time and energy in trying to accomplish those. I've always thought that any discussion on immigration centers around border security, and I understand you all disagree with me on that, but I think it's a very important pillar, and both bills today will address that in very good shape. So no matter what happens going forward, I feel like we're taking steps forward. I feel like both of these bills take 4 steps forward. They don't solve all the problems. We're still going to take people to solve the problems, but I think these are great steps in the right direction. I think it's a real good solution for all the DACA recipients that we have across the state. I really do like going to a merit-based form of immigration, and 80% of Americans support these 4 pillars. So 80% of Americans agree with the basic direction and the basic goals that we have. I greatly appreciate everybody coming today, and certainly hope you feel like you got heard today. So thank you so much for coming.
One more question. As a physician, have you ever had a concern about the psychological makeup of President Trump from your very core level of honesty?
Actually not. I think I understand his personality very, very well. He's absolutely think that he's a brilliant person, and he's a great leader. He's taken the country in the right direction, and his heart is just golden. Nobody is more upset than the president is about children being separated from their parents. You think back to Syria and those bombings and how his heart was moved to see those children being attacked by chemotherapy. So I'm a very big supporter of the president. Think he's going in the right direction. So thank you so much for your questions, and we'll get ready to go vote.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for your time.
More live.
Okay, can I get it back?